bizarre. It's a very bizarre thing. So it's either extreme incompetence or.
Shout out to everybody in the building. Just give y'all a few seconds to come on in. We about to do a STEAM class, STEAM session, virtual STEAM session. Shout out to everybody in the building on this lovely Saturday. I'm about to play some of my tracks here. Let's get it poppin'.
Let's get one thing straight. Funky bassline kicks in. Tight drums. You have been taught a lie. A massive, centuries-old lie. But the truth has a funky beat. This is for Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. They told you Columbus was the first to cross the sea. A 49 and 2 did discovery, but the evidence is thick. The proof is on the case. A different kind of hero from a different time and space. Before the Nina Pinta and the Santa Maria sail came a wave of African kings, sturdy on the gale. All my heads in Mexico, with features strong and wide, Negroid noses, lips and locks, with nowhere left to hide. Dr. Wagon dug them up, said the research is sound. 40 years in the field, on that hallowed ground. Shake Diop sent his praise across the water, making historical science flip and somersault. They were right. Ivan Van Sertima was right. The Olmecs were African, shining in the ancient light. They crossed the water, bold and brave, upon the ocean's might. So let the funk drop heavy and set the record right. They were right. Ivan Van Sertima was right. Hey, Erda built a boat of reed, named it the Good Ship. Ra proved the Atlantic could be crossed the old school ancient way. From Mali, Abu Bakari, an emperor with the dream, sent 2,000 ships on a transatlantic stream. Songhai counter ships could ride the current's flow. Dr. Kamugisha,
Yep.
y'all already know. And Dr. Blount, the geographer, said the winds were blowing right for West African mariners burning through the night. They found the skeletons, the script, the artifacts so fine. That Hope Bay and the virgins laying on the burial line, with earthenware and tokens, a story to be told. History that's ancient, more precious than gold. They were right. Ivan Van Sertima was right. The Olmecs were African, shining in the ancient light. They crossed the water, bold and brave, upon the ocean's might. So let the funk drop heavy and set the record right. They were right. Ivan Van Sertima was right. The Olmecs were African, shining in the ancient light. They crossed the water, bold and brave, upon the ocean's might. So let the funk drop heavy and set the record right. Dr. John L. Sorensen and Carl L. Johansson, transoceanic transfer of biota. The plants don't lie. Dr. Carl Schwerin on the cotton, domestication timelines. Check the signs. Dr. Gonzalo Aguirre Beltran, Mexican anthropologist, didn't reject the black presence, he saw it. Dr. Alfonso Zanil acknowledged real Negroes, it's in the art people, look at the head. Dr. Obadele Cambon said if a rat could make it, why not a man, why not a king? The critique was political, ideological, they ignored the core evidence. That was Dr. Bernal. Now let's get back to the fun. They were right, I've been certain what was right. The Olmecs were African, shining in the ancient light. They crossed the water, golden bridge, upon the ocean's might. So let the funk drop heavy, and set the record right. They were right, I've been certain what was right. 35 scholars, a multidisciplinary groove. From archaeology, linguistics, history. They
About
made
to
their
get it
move.
in. What's up with Trigger? What's up with everybody in the building? This is a simulcast. We're gonna go over
Just hit 'em with the funk.
just a few things
Watch
in the media.
Van Sertima was right.
This is a simulcast for the Unite team. I'm gonna get y'all the link in the description so you can subscribe to their YouTube page. Shout out to everybody in the building.
Yeah. Let's rewrite the narrative. Crack the code and break the seal. They told you Columbus first, but I'm here to reveal what's real. This ain't speculation, this is evidence of scholarly achievement. I've invented my building on the work of a few believers. From Leo Weiner's volumes to Alexander von Woodenau's glance. Document African presence before the Spanish ever danced. This is for John G. Jackson, J.A. Rogers holding down the fort. For Harold G. Lawrence, Kofi Wanga reporting from the court. Legrand Clegg II, Father Vang from Cameroon's planning intellectual seas under ideological monsoons. They came before Columbus. Across the Atlantic road.
Shout out to Trill Black. I'm trying to paste a link in the description, or a link in the chat rather. It's not letting me though. I'm gonna type it out.
Check the diaries of Columbus. His own words exciting. Dark-skinned people trading here. His entry is exciting. Said they came from Guinea Coast in canoes and merchandise. Askia the Great was ruling under songy skies. Balboa in 1513 at Darien on the beach saw a permanent settlement. His testimonies within reach. Vespucci spotted black men sailing back across the waves, carrying the story of the bold and the brave. Peruvian traditions tell of black men in the east, pushing through the Andes Mountains at the very least. Mexican and Central tales are the first to occupy. Indians claim descent from them, look me in the eye. They came before Columbus. Across the Atlantic road, trading with the Mandingo from the West African shore. Mali and Songhai empires with the spirit to explore, leaving traces in the artifacts and legends evermore. Yeah, they came before Columbus. Let the historians roll.
Subscribe to the video that you see, or the channel that you see in the description. That's the Unite Incorporated. They do a lot of great work in the Bay Area. Right now we're doing a little simulcast for them, talking about some current events. The Venezuela invasion is really, really important because we have to talk about the position of African-centered STEAM, African-centered nation builders. Shout out to everybody in the building. We gonna get through this. We gonna have some fun. And we just gonna expose a lot of the lies told in the mainstream media.
the influence was vast and grand. Now it's time to take a stand. This ain't myth, it's documented, densely represented. A legacy that's been prevented, but can no longer be dented. They came before Columbus, across the Atlantic road, trading with the Mandingo from the West African shore. Mali and Songhai empires with a spirit to explore, leaving traces in the artifacts and legends evermore. Yeah, they came before Columbus, let the historians war. Yeah. We digging up the roots now that they try to ignore. Yeah. John Henry Clark wrote the review, passing on the torch, saying after roots, this knowledge needs to run its course. The roots are even deeper in a scholarly design shape. They came before Columbus, history's great escape.
Shout out to everybody in the building. Yeah, just give me a 1 if you can hear me loud and clear. Give me a 1 if you can hear me loud and clear. We're gonna get into these articles. We're gonna have some fun and get into these articles. This is gonna be a pretty cool show. As I stated before, we are going to review just some of the latest updates. You know, we have the war in Venezuela. There is a war going on in Venezuela right now. There is a invasion, if you will. Invasion going on in the nation of Venezuela. Maduro has been captured. You know, he is in U.S. custody. Shout out to Trigger. And right here, what do we have? We have, you know, lawmakers criticizing Trump's moves. They don't necessarily agree with what he's doing, obviously. You know, they don't agree with what he's doing. They think it is a very serious problem. You know, it's illegal according to U.S. law. You know, you got Republicans rallying around Trump and Democrats, you know, kind of giving a little bit of lip service. So you see, you got the Republican leaders and allies of Trump, and they praise his airstrikes in Venezuela to capture the leader, Nicolas Maduro. Right? Shout out to that good guy in the building. Let me make this a little bit different. I don't want y'all to see these little ads over here. I don't want y'all to see these little ads. Y'all need to get... Alright, we good. We good. Alright, so, you know, Trump is facing some questions in Capitol Hill about the legality and the wisdom of his attack. I mean, shout out to everybody who said that Trump was anti-war. Shout out to the fecal brain assimilationists who are cheerleading Trump, because you know they only attack Democrats. When Democrats are in power, they attack Democrats. But when Republicans are in power, they do a generic white supremacy. They don't ever directly go after the Republican Party. You know, these guys are stooges. The fecal Marcus Vincent Thomas, Jeremy Lloyd Smith, you know, recessive wax spoof, degenerates who lie on the name of John Henrik Clark, right? You see, you have Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's a Republican firebrand who has recently accused Trump of betraying the movement. And she questioned Trump's justification for the strike. So there are Venezuelans who were murdered in this strike. There are innocent Venezuelans who were murdered in this strike. So we have innocent civilians being murdered because of the moves by Donald Trump and the Donald Trump regime. So that's a very negative problem. So the question is, will Trump invade Venezuela with ground troops? Right, that's the question that we're going to start off. Do you think Donald Trump will invade Venezuela with ground troops? I think at this point it is likely. But let me know what you think. I put the poll up here. And for everybody listening in, there is a link pinned to the top called Unite Inc. They are a group of very good African-centered brothers, engineers, scientists who teach black youth in the Bay Area about African-centered STEAMs. They're well-connected brothers. Give that channel a subscribe, right? There's a really good community of people out there. And by the way, shout out to 19 Keys. I know 19 Keys, you know, is a controversial individual in some spaces, but, you know, 19 Keys one of his family members is actually a part of the team of Unite Inc., right? And they've given a lot of support to the endeavor of educating black youth in the sciences, right? So this is something that you want to pay attention to, right? So let's get into this video.
Late last night and early today,
Fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use.
at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer. All perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, it's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, like never before. These highly trained warriors, operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement, caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea, just sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in a ready, what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed.
Yeah, I just find it fascinating how, the media just allows the lies, like the imperialist lies. Shout out to the Jughead 77. Happy New Year's, bro. Kamji, keep up the good work. It's appreciated. Love and respect from your Nigerian brother over here in the UK. Shout out to the Nigerians out there. Shout out to the Niger brothers and sisters. Shout out to Trill in the chat, giving me really good support. I hope to be over there, soon, very, very soon, on the continent specifically, God willing. But shout out to y'all in the building. You know, we gotta support each other, and I appreciate that. Yeah, so let's continue on with this.
And not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far. With capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have, and you see that even if you just look at the boats. You know, we've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world.
So y'all stand by for us. Y'all heard that. Y'all heard that. He literally admitted. They've been admitting it. It's about the oil. It's about the oil. It's 100% about the oil, right? And funny enough is, you know, really recently actually, you know, Venezuelan Americans were protesting Donald Trump. Right? Venezuelan Americans were protesting Donald Trump. Let's actually bring this up a little bit. Let me bring this up in my little universe here. Yeah. Let me bring this up. I'm gonna show y'all this.
President Donald Trump is.
So this happened, I think, a few months ago, or maybe it was last year, where you have these Venezuelan Americans who are criticizing the Donald because they fear deportation and their family members were being deported. This is only a few months ago. So as Donald Trump is talking about Venezuelans returning to their homeland, he's been deporting them since day one. Just get it.
Expected to invoke a sweeping wartime authority to speed up mass deportations. That's according to sources familiar with these discussions.
So this comes as Venezuelans in Florida, many of whom voted for Trump because of his tough stance on immigration, are now having second thoughts. For CBS News Miami.
Fair use, fair use. Again, a lot of these Venezuelans voted for Trump. A lot of these, and look, some of these Venezuelans that you may see celebrating voted for Donald Trump. They wanted this to happen, right?
Priscilla Alvarez has the story.
Ay, sí, el cafecito.
For Carol Duran Perez, the routines of daily life have been thrown into chaos. She's a Venezuelan immigrant, now terrified of being deported. Are you afraid of your son walking to school?
Sí.
Yes, truly, yes.
What are you afraid of?
De que lo vaya.
That they'll pick him up and he won't have time to call me. Also that it might happen when I'm not with him or he's not with me. That is the worst fear I have.
Like so many other Venezuelans, she cheered when Donald Trump was elected because of his tough approach to policies, such as his promise to crack down on a violent Venezuelan criminal organization.
We will expel every single illegal alien gang member and migrant criminal operating on American soil and remove the savage gang Tren de Aragua from the United States.
You supported Donald Trump, even though you couldn't vote for him.
Sí, sí, yo creo que...
Yes, yes. I believe there is a large community of Venezuelans who did.
What she didn't expect is for those policies to throw her life in limbo and stoke fear in her community. Carol is one of hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan immigrants who were granted temporary protected status, or TPS, under the Biden administration. President Trump wiped that away for all Venezuelans. When they said the TPS is going to be revoked, were you surprised?
Sí, totalmente.
Yes, totally. And this was a hard blow because practically the same day he took office, he went against Venezuelans. It seemed personal.
Personal.
Carol's not alone. This slice of Florida is affectionately called Dorazuela. Doral, a Miami suburb best known for its Trump golf resort, is home to 27,000 Venezuelan immigrants, more than any other city in the U.S. President Donald Trump handedly won Doral in 2024, a place where 40% of its population has Venezuelan roots. And it's restaurants like these that have become staples of the community, also where they've protested his actions to revoke TPS. Faso is a gathering place for Venezuelans. The restaurant is losing business. People are afraid to leave their homes. Immigration attorney Rosana Guillen says her phone hasn't stopped ringing since the decision to revoke deportation protections.
And there's actually people sobbing on the other line, crying, and scared for the family members.
She says it's a mistake for the Trump administration to group all Venezuelans together with the criminal gangs.
We have doctors, engineers, baseball players, musicians. We have a beautiful community. They came here legally. They pay taxes. They contribute to our economy.
Local officials have warned that the Doral economy could grind to a halt if Venezuelans lose their ability to work legally.
Without that community, I think Doral will cease to be what it is. We're going to turn into a city that is going to lose a lot of its residents.
A group of Venezuelans is suing the Trump administration for revoking TPS, arguing the decision was, quote, illegal for multiple reasons. For Carol, time is running out. What are you most afraid of for you and your son?
De ser deportado.
Of being deported, that they separate me from my son.
So you could see, as you could see here, you could see that, the deportations of the Venezuelan community have been long-standing, Venezuelans in America. And you can see why, there are certain African countries that are banning U.S. citizens from entry. Banning fecal brain assimilationists. We spoke about Mali and Burkina Faso. Niger also in December, banned United States citizens. So this is something that's happening more and more, across the planet, especially with the rise of U.S. imperialism, right? This is something that is occurring more and more. So this is a tit-for-tat ban again. Mali and Burkina Faso, they have imposed full visa bans on U.S. citizens in retaliation for Donald Trump's ban on U.S. visas for citizens this month. The two West African countries, which were both governed by the military on Tuesday, became the latest African nations to issue tit-for-tat visa bans, on the U.S. These follow Trump's new visa restrictions, which now apply to 39 countries in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. The White House said that they were imposed on national security grounds. So again, we spoke about this, and this is important because a lot of African nations are beginning to wake up and they're beginning to fight back, with respect to what's going on in the United States. This is a big deal because Venezuela was allied with the BRICS nations. They were allied with BRICS, right? So this is why we have to take nation building more seriously, right? We have to take, these things to account when we're building relationships with different African nations around the world. This is very, very important. Very extremely important. So, you know, we can't act willy-nilly with respect to this, because as you can see, all of the individuals who said that, you know, the Donald was not going to engage in this type of activity, he wasn't going to engage in this type of imperialism, it was just fear-mongering, you know, we could clearly see that that's not the case at all. That never was the case, right? This is serious. This is very, very serious. And who knows? Many have speculated that the Sahelian states could be next. They could be next with respect to this, right? So another thing that people talk about is nuclear energy, right? And that's probably going to be the next question, because many people say that it's only logical to have nuclear energy, you know, with respect to defending your nation, right? Now, up here on the right-hand side, you know, this is a flyer, you know, for all of those who would like to participate, you know, if you are in the Bay Area or on the West Coast of California, this is just a form of participation, or a participation flyer to get you involved with what's going on with this Unite STEAM class. Again, these are a group of brothers, you know, politically minded brothers, you know, socially minded brothers who teach science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, you know, from an African-centered perspective, right? And this stream is meant to be a simulcast to go over geopolitical events and updates and speak about the importance of African-centered STEAM with respect to nation building and with respect to galvanizing different groups of African descended people all over the planet towards this common goal, right? This is really key. Really key. Yeah, and this is exactly why Ibrahim Traore spoke about the Black Winter, you know, bringing about the Black Winter, right? This is why he mentioned that, because you can't rely, you know, on these different forces when it comes to, you know, securing your daily bread, securing sustenance. They're not necessarily trustworthy at all. They're not necessarily trustworthy. I'm gonna try to see if I can bring up, they got a paywall. I wanted to bring up an article about, you know, what is going on with China's response, you know, to these attacks. You know, this is really a big deal, to say the least. Really big deal. And I'm just fascinated at the amount of paywalls as I try to bring up these articles. Seems like every news site has a paywall. But a lot of people are wondering what this means for Russia and China. What exactly does this mean? What does this mean for techno-feudalism? Because we live in the age of techno-feudalism. We live in the age of technocracies. We live in the age that is the end of capitalism, right? We live in an age that, you know, you see the world rapidly changing before our eyes. So what exactly does this mean, you know, for these states, for these nation states? Right? That's a very important question. You know, you have Russia and China. They've decried these actions, right? So with their ally Maduro, will they actually take a stand? That's a really big question. So you have Russia condemning the U.S. actions and calling for a full meeting of the United Nations Security Council. This morning, the United States committed an act of armed aggression against Venezuela. This is deeply concerning and condemnable, Russia said in its statement from its foreign ministry. The pretexts used to justify such actions are unfounded. Ideological animosity has prevailed over business pragmatism and the willingness to build relationships based on trust and predictability. In the current situation, it is important first and foremost to prevent further escalation and to focus on finding a way out of the situation through dialogue. You have China also condemning the use of force with its foreign ministry, criticizing Washington's actions is a violation of international law. So you have China is deeply shocked and strongly condemns the U.S. brazen use of force against the sovereign state in Venezuela and its actions directed at its president, the ministry said, according to the South China Morning Post. Such hegemonic behavior by the U.S. is a grave violation of international law, an infringement upon the sovereignty of Venezuela, and a threat to the peace and security of the Latin American and Caribbean region. So again, we have this, this response from China and Russia. And again, the gangsterism of the United States. That's a really, really big issue, right? That's a very, very big issue. So what do y'all think? Looking at this post, we have 88% of y'all who voted say that Trump will invade Venezuela with ground troops. I don't think that's going to go over too well. And personally, I think that Trump has to invade because of the Epstein files. We could go over some of the Epstein releases, but this is a perfect distraction from the Epstein files. Perfect distraction. So this is why BRICS is going to be a huge success, because of the straight up gangsterism of the United States. Yeah, I mean, a lot of nations would rather deal with BRICS than deal with the United States in this state. That's very, very true. Extremely true. So I want to see how many people subscribe to Unite. Everybody listening here should hit that subscribe button. I want to see what they're at. I think they're at like 10 or 15 subs. Let me see what they're at. New page. They're new and improved, I should say. They're at 49 subscribers. Can we get them to 100? Can we get them 50 more? They're at 49. Let's get them 50. Press 1 in the description if you are subscribed to the channel that is the pinned link, or press 1 in the comments rather if you are subscribed to Unite, the channel pinned in the comments. If not, please hit subscribe. Please subscribe to that channel. We want to get them to 100 before the end of the stream. I think we could do that. Shout out to Trigger Happy. Thank you for subscribing. They do really, really good work. If you're interested in teaching the youth about STEAM, building solutions to problems, teaching them how to be their own investors, their own creators, that's very, really important. Shout out to you, Water Angola. We got brothers and sisters on the continent. We also have a Discord as well. So if you're subscribed to them, you're going to get links to the Discord. If you're in my Discord, we're going to start promoting it a lot more. But hit that subscribe button, y'all. All right, they're at 53. 4 of y'all just press the button. Shout out to y'all. Let's get them to 100 before the end of the show. Really intelligent brother. The leader of the channel, he's a graduate of Princeton University. He's an astrophysicist of Princeton. He's been on the channel before. Really extremely intelligent brother. Extremely intelligent. And he has a lot to offer with respect to, just alternative perspectives on math and science. These brothers are building spaceships. They're working with NASA JPL. They're working with the Chabot Center out in the Bay Area. They're getting kids into physics, getting kids who want to be astronauts, kids who want to, explore and discover space, like the Comgyverse here. This is a pivotal part of our organization. You have structural engineers, you have people who are dealing with material science and the different aspects and details that are important to space exploration as well as technological advancement. So this is a very, very important aspect. Shout out to you, Water Angola. So we want to take a perusal with the Epstein files, because the Epstein files are pretty much why I believe that, that this is happening, that these attacks are happening. Because you kind of have the Trump administration cornered with respect to this Epstein stuff. People on the right and the left, they want answers with regards to Epstein, because they haven't gotten the necessary answers. Shout out to the Angolanos, by the way, too. I have a lot of good followers from Angola. So we got a recently released cache of surveillance video from the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, and it's raising questions about the prison cameras at the facility where Epstein died in his cell in 2019. The videos are among a huge cache of materials released on December 23rd by the Department of Justice, as congressionally mandated by the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Rather than clarifying events surrounding Epstein's death, the footage appears to complicate the official narrative and contradict some prior statements about the prison surveillance system. So you have Epstein was found dead in his cell approximately 6:30 a.m. on August 10th, 2019 by a corrections officer delivering breakfast at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, where he was awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. His death was ruled as suicide by the city's chief medical examiner. 3 months later, then Attorney General Bill Barr said he had personally reviewed prison surveillance footage and verified that no one entered Epstein's cell in the hours before his death, which supported his conclusions that Epstein died by suicide. The FBI released that footage this summer. An analysis by CBS News found that the footage did not provide a clear enough view to definitively prove that no one entered Epstein's cell area, and there were other inconsistencies with the official statement and witness interviews. So you have the DOJ and the FBI declining to comment at the time. And, this is just them copying pleas, trying to find excuses for their lies. They're obviously lying about this. And they're obviously, using these different situations as a reason to not release the files. And personally, I thought that they would do the alien thing. I thought they would release the aliens before, they attacked. But I guess attacking Venezuela is an easier strategy than just releasing the alien files. Here you have an image of the security. What do y'all think? Do you think the Venezuela, attack, do you think that attack was about hiding these Epstein files? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. This looks blurry. I don't know if this would tell you anything. And there were even reports that, they had changed it up and changed angles and stuff, and essentially it wasn't sufficient to immediately invalidate the idea that Epstein committed suicide. And his brother, Mark Epstein, in the new releases, came out and said that he believes that Trump had his brother killed. shadow ban. It's true. In terms of like power. That's very, very true. It's really ridiculous, honestly. Very ridiculous. But again, you have 4 non-sequential 1-hour videos from this camera are all dated August 12, 2019, 2 days after Epstein's death. However, Department of Justice correspondents say that the surveillance system stopped recording on July 29th and was not repaired until August 4th. And it's just funny that right when Epstein died, they said that the video camera needed to be repaired. How convenient. How convenient that a pedophile, sex trafficker with international connections to some of the most powerful people in the planet, when he commits suicide, the surveillance camera stops working. How convenient. Nobody believes that. They're obviously, very obviously lying. Very, very obviously lying. Yeah, it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. So, that's a very, very big element of this in my mind. This is definitively because of the Epstein files, which is why this attack happened, right? And one of the things that, we try to promote in our classes is agency and frameworks. The framework that you're coming from matters. And you can see this within this news report, within the CBS news report, or the different news reports that we've examined. What you see in CBS is not going to necessarily be the same thing that you see in Telesur. Telesur being a Latin American government-oriented news company. So I'm going to give you a look of this, of just the differences with respect to how media is reported. This is Telesur. And Telesur, if you want to have some unbiased with the Western perspective news, I would recommend this outlet. A lot of people say that this is a bias in the direction of Russia and Russia Today, in the direction of Latin American governments. But as Americans, this news outlet will tell you certain things that the American media will refuse to tell you. All right. So right here, you have Venezuela's vice president. There is only one president here, and his name is Nicolas Maduro. Me span this out so y'all can see. Shout out to everybody in the bureau, then. Shout out to everybody enjoying this beautiful Saturday with me. Appreciate all y'all's time and enjoyment. Shout out to everybody. So you got Vice President Delcy Rodriguez denounced an unprecedented military aggression against Venezuela perpetrated under false pretenses with the real aim of imposing a change of regime and plundering the country's natural resources. Right, so you can see here, and this is just, they've admitted that too. They've said that it's about oil. They've said that, they want to invade Venezuela because of the oil. They want to invade because of the oil. They've admitted that on numerous occasions. So this is just something that, nobody is even confused about this. Everybody knows this. Everybody is aware of this. Everybody knows that this has always been about the oil. 100%. Right? So again, this is about U.S. companies taking control, taking command. All right. So you have, VP Rodriguez accompanied by her senior officials, headed an emergency meeting of the National Defense Council. And she's decrying these false excuses. And, it's kind of as if Venezuela's sitting ducks, because without support, I think some of the commenters above recently said that, the Dominican Republic helped the United States capture Maduro. And right here you see this tag, Telesaurus funded in whole or in part by multiple Latin American governments. So we're gonna play this. Fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use.
We're going live with Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, who's speaking live right now. Let's listen.
The government of the United States launched an aggression, a military aggression, unprecedented against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It constitutes a terrible stain in the development of the relationships, the bilateral relationships. In that military operation, it was captured the President Nicolás Maduro and the First Lady, first combatant Celia Flores. We had already warned that it was happening in aggression under false excuses, under false pretexts, and that the mask had fallen and only had one objective.
Yeah, so she's going over like the false pretenses, the lies that were being told,
which was the regime change in Venezuela, and that regime change allowed as well the capture of our energy resources, of our mineral resources, of our natural resources. There is the true objective, and the world and the international community must know that it's like that we have called for this Council of Defense of the Nation, where we have the public powers of the Venezuelan state. We are accompanied by the president of the legislative power of Venezuela, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, the president of the judicial power, Dr. Maria Beatriz, and the president of the moral power, the general Tarek Williams. But we also have the Minister of Defense, the Chief of DCO, the Vice President of Citizen Security, the Council of Vice Presidents.
So you're going over all of the different people that they have at their disposal, who have, decried this. They decried what's going on. And, she's even talking about Zionism. How many people think that Zionism is a major role here? The Zionist state of Israel. I'm going to do a video about how Israel recently threatened to invade Nigeria, right? So Zionism is a huge element, according to the vice president of Venezuela, on this issue, right? So again, this is her saying that Venezuela is not going to be anybody's colony.
It's been said by the president and described by the president Nicolás Maduro, and for all that is ready in that decree of external compulsion to be executed from this moment to our Venezuela, to our people. Here we have a government that has clarity, and I repeat once again from the words of the president, I take them once again. We are willing to have relationships of respect. We are willing to relationships in the framework of international legality and in the laws of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. That is the only thing that we will accept for a type of relationships after they having attempted and militarily assaulted our beloved nation and the capital that saw the birth of our father liberator Simón Bolívar. In national union, the Venezuelan people will find the path in peace, in tranquility. Those who have to use force and those who have to use violence and going against international legality do not have the reason. We have the historical reason and the moral reason to maintain ourselves firm in defense of the peace, of the tranquility, of the right to the future of Venezuela, the right to the homeland that the Venezuelan people has, and the right to a future and the social happiness of our people. There we are with our father liberator in Angostura.
Yeah, so like she going in, just basically talking about why, this is happening. So again, look, frameworks are important. Frameworks are very, very pivotal when analyzing these news stories, when analyzing these different sources of information, right? That's the reason why the United States, like the US, regime, got rid of, they got rid of Russia Today because they didn't want any competition with respect to their narrative. right? Shout out to Pan-African James in the building. I'm gonna find, you know, Netanyahu, what Netanyahu said about Nigeria, and I was gonna do a video about this as well. But he said recently that he would invade Nigeria. This is something that he said, and you know, Trump bombed Nigeria recently. This is something that happened recently. So, you know, this is something that a lot of people have feared would be, you know, coming. Militant engagement with Nigeria. You know, that's something that a lot of people have feared would come. Shout out to Bitter Medicine podcast. Koku, appreciate you for joining in. You know, yeah, look, Nigeria doubled their oil refining capacity. Now all of a sudden, you know, a lot of these European nations care about Nigerian Christians. Interestingly enough, most of Venezuela is Christian, right? But they're not white per se. They're brown mestizos, so they don't count. So it's okay to kill and hurt Christians in Venezuela if it meets your geopolitical goals. Y'all see the game that's being played here. So this is going to be...
Our agenda is the main part of... there are some people who believe that...
Let me see if y'all can... I'm not sure if y'all can see this properly. Yeah, I wanna... Yeah, let me get this... All right, let's get it.
I don't know that faith should be silent and terrorism should be understood. No. Faith should speak its voice and terrorism should be confronted, not understood, confronted and defeated. And that is what we're engaged in right now. So I want you to know that I spoke with President Trump yesterday. I said this publicly too. I see the battle against us and the battle against our Judeo-Christian tradition. They go to Europe, they go to the United States, they go to Africa, Nigeria. And we are conscious of the fact that Christians are being persecuted across the Middle East, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Nigeria, in Turkey, and beyond. Beleaguered communities who deserve our help. Just as you are helping us, we want to help back. And we're capable of doing that. In Africa with intel, in the Middle East with a lot of means that I won't itemize each one. But this is what our agenda is. It's the main part of our agenda. And it's going to continue with greater force and greater might in this coming year.
See, and this is just another case of what we're talking about, because these people, these individuals, they want to bomb these nations into smithereens. Our program in teaching Africans self-sufficiency, teaching them how to build infrastructure, teaching black youth all over the world how to build infrastructure. This is a more effective way of establishing a security apparatus for their nation than just bombing them into smithereens, right? But obviously they don't care about that. They don't care about the infrastructure. They don't care about clean air. They don't care about clean water. They don't care about African nations being self-sufficient at all. So you won't see them promoting programs like the Unite Saturday School, the Unite STEAM sessions, to make black youth aware of why nation building is important and why we have to use our skills for defense. Because when you're talking about the security apparatus, this is an engineering endeavor. This is an engineering endeavor. This is 100% engineering endeavor, right? And this is the type of things that we teach. Self-sufficiency is what we teach, right? We don't need people like Satan Yahoo controlling, dictating politics, political strategy. This is not what we need at all. At all. Right? But as you can see clearly here, you know, he is ready and willing to invade Nigeria, right? So you say gold prices are off the charts. Let's take a look at some of these gold prices that you're referring to. I think that's an interesting thing to look at. You got gold futures. Actually, Wall Street Journal, I see, you know, gold suffer their biggest ever weekly decline. This is an interesting article here. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Now, this could be propaganda. They got a paywall. I hate this when they have a paywall. Yeah, so bullion gold. The bullion market has fallen a little bit. It's fallen a little bit. It could come back though. This is a chart that you see, the bullion, the gold futures. They're at 4,400. I don't know if y'all can see that on the screen. They're at 4,400. And now they fell down a little bit. So that's something to pay attention to. Definitely. That's definitely something to pay attention to. What do we have Unite at? We have 53. Can we get Unite to at least 60? I want to get it to 100, but look, we got to get it to at least 60. If you're not subscribed to the link in the description that's pinned to the top, please subscribe. We want to get their numbers up. You want to get their numbers up definitively. You want to get their numbers up. Yeah, I know that Burkina Faso has a lot of gold. You know, Mali recently nationalized their gold. Which is also why it's silly for the fecal brain assimilationists to compare themselves to Pan-Africanists. There's no comparison. Pan-Africanists have nations. They have Ogun juice. You can't compare national ports and national mines to Ogun juice. Silver went from 35 to 75. And now it's 2 from a 5-month rise. That's what's up. If I look at the silver prices, what are the silver prices doing? Silver prices, yeah, silver prices been up. I'm gonna do a 6-monther. Yeah, silver prices risen. Oh, I don't have a year to date. Yeah, silver has gone up. Silver has gone up. Gold a year. Yeah, gold is crazy. Gold's rise that's crazy. That's a pretty remarkable rise. Gold doubled. Yeah, a 5-year gold is skyrocketed off of a 5-year. That's pretty incredible. It's looking like gold is definitely a good investment. I think it's gonna probably rise a little bit more. Yeah, gold is on one. These people who invested in gold are doing really, really well right now. What is Bitcoin doing? Where's Bitcoin at? Yeah, Bitcoin's been a little bit volatile. They're 5-year. Yeah, this Bitcoin hasn't been as good, but gold has been doing really well. That's been doing really well. Yeah, so what do y'all think is gonna happen next? You know, in terms of Africa, you know, we could get into Niger and Niger uranium, because I think that's a big you know deal. That's a big thing that we needed to pay attention to, because, you know, France is struggling now economically. You know what I'm saying? France is doing a lot of struggle economically. So we have to pay attention to this. Shout out to Chematology in the building. So we got France investigating $310 million of uranium in Niger, you know, as resource battle deepens in the Sahel. So French nuclear giant Orano says 1,600 tons of uranium stockpiled before nationalization may have been moved, prompting Paris to launch a criminal probe amid Niger's junta's push to sell strategic minerals. So these minerals, they belong to African nations. They don't belong to France, you know, at all. They belong to African nations, right? So this is something that, you know, France has consistently tried to lay claim to, but it's not something that any of us agree with, obviously. Not at all. So you have Orano, a French nuclear company, and they suspect 1,600 tons of uranium stockpiles in Niger were moved without authorization. A French prosecutor has launched an investigation into an alleged organized gang theft of uranium from a Niger site previously operated by Orano. The case comes amid a dispute between France and Niger's military government over the control of strategic natural resources. Reports indicate large quantities of uranium being transported from Niger, raising concerns about its potential sale to foreign entities. I mean, Niger has the right to sell to whoever they want to sell to. France does not control Niger's uranium. If Niger wants to remove France, that's their prerogative. They have the right to do with their resources. France does not control the uranium in Niger. So, you know, this uranium is important because it is what could lead to, you know, an arsenal, quite frankly, because if you want to prevent, you know, the Western states from invading, you have to think about developing an arsenal. You have to think about, you know, having enrichment, right? Niger has to think about that, because I would not trust the disunited snakes. I would not trust any deal from Donald Trump. They cannot be trusted. They will always try to invade and take. They're doing it in Venezuela. You know, they're going to do it in the Sahel if they see fit. You know, the invasion of Nigeria is just a cover. It's a cover for, you know, what they are trying to hide. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just clear that this is a really, really important strategic resource. So there's a dispute on the Somer uranium mine in Erlit, which Urano operated until June 2024, when the ruling junta took control nearly a year after seizing power in a coup. Urano says close to 1,600 tons of uranium concentrate produced while it ran the mine were stockpiled there, with an estimated market value of 310 million. A French court ruled in September that the Nigerian state had no right to sell, transfer, or facilitate the transfer of uranium produced by Somer prior to nationalization. French prosecutors are examining whether the movement of uranium breached court orders and laws governing strategic materials, with investigators assessing potential involvement by foreign state or commercial actors. The classification of the case reflects concerns over national security, given uranium's role in nuclear energy and medical treatment, and places the probe under France's specialized financial and security crime jurisdiction. So again, here you have, you know, France is just crying. They're just crying that they can't get, you know, they can't just steal the uranium from Niger, right? They can't just steal the uranium, and that's why they're pissed. They're pissed because they don't have immediate access to the uranium, and that's because they don't deserve it at all. They're not entitled to it, as we discussed before. So, you know, this is just par for the course. This is just par for the course. This is what happens when you take control of your nation. And the fecal brain assimilationists, they don't really know anything about this because they are not independent arbiters at all. I don't know if I'm still live. I should still be live. It's not showing though. Y'all can still hear me and it still says I'm going, but give me a 1 if you can still hear me loud and clear. I'm gonna make sure that we're still rolling. I want to make sure that we're still rolling. Give me a 1 if y'all can still hear me. So I'm not seeing my stats right now. I don't know if if we are still live in full effect. Yes, we are. It shows that we are, for sure. On mobile, it's just not showing me. That's what's up. Shout out to Trigger in the building. You know, sometimes OBS can act a little finicky, but we are still live in full effect. Shout out to Chematology. I think Chematology is my brother from Cameroon. Shout out to Chris Smalls in the building. Shout out to Chris Smalls. Shout out to everybody tuning in. Shout out to Emmanuel Bissant. So y'all can hear me loud and clear. For sure. Yeah, let's continue onward. So again, you know, France is crying. They're crying because they don't have access to the uranium. Right, so Niger's junta leader, General Abdurrahmani Chiani, has defended plans to sell uranium, arguing that it belongs to the Nigerian people, and signaling a shift towards partners such as Russia or Iran. Moscow has publicly expressed interest in Niger's uranium sector. However, the World Bank's arbitration body had prohibited Niger from trading uranium from the Somer mine seized from Urano by junta. The case mirrors tensions in neighboring Mali, where a judge recently ordered the return of 3 metric tons of gold worth about $400 million seized from Barrick's Gold Lulo Gunkoto complex. While Mali's ruling eased pressure on a foreign miner, Niger's uranium dispute has intensified, highlighting how Sahel's military governments are increasingly reshaping relations with Western mining companies. So I gotta take a look at this. You know, so Barrick Gold has retained control, you know, following a 2-year dispute over mining revenues and the regulatory authority. And we got to pay attention to these types of, you know, reports right? Because a lot of things is going to be hidden within the crevices. So you know, you see here they had a 2-year dispute. Congolese. Shout out to Chematology. Shout out to Chematology. Shout out to Emmanuel Bessaint. And as I stated in the previous video, if y'all have some video requests, you know, you can hit me, you know, at Comgiverse on the Cash App and email me. Hit me with the Cash App and then email me the request, or in the description of the Cash App, let me know, you know, what your video request is. And depending on the size of the donation will determine the scope of the video. Let me see if this works. Does that work? I don't know if that works. Yeah, it doesn't work. I don't know why this doesn't let me. This is really interesting. It doesn't let me copy paste links. I think that's kind of weird. Yeah, so it's gonna be HTTPS. Show. Oh, my dough. When we ready to go, ready to I don't know. Ready to go, yeah, me ready to flow. Ready to go, am I ready in my own? Yo. Again, if y'all have some requests, you know, you can hit me in the Cash App. You got these weird ass ads. these weird ass ads. All good. In the neighborhood. It's understood. So, you know, you have this dispute. Fucking ads, dude. Fuck you guys. So you have the Gunkoto complex in Mali is one of Africa's largest gold mines, producing around 723,000 ounces of gold in 2024. Operated by Barrick Gold, the integrated Lulo and Gunkoto sites combine high-grade reserves with extensive infrastructure, making the mine a major contributor to Mali's gold output and export earnings. The initial phase will prioritize mandatory safety and operational training for employees and contractors, according to the memo signed by Sebastian Brock. And very, very interesting stuff. So it appears that you know, they've been able to get back control, you know, of the mines. They've been able to resume access, rather, of the mines. Right, and it's something that I got to pay close attention to, like what concessions did they legally have access to, because there has been a degree of nationalization that occurred with the mines. So, you know, we got to pay attention to that aspect. Found my window here. There we are. So the resumption follows a settlement reached last month between Barrick and Mali's government after prolonged negotiations triggered by the country's revised mining code. The new legislation, introduced by the junta after it seized power, significantly expanded the state's share of mining revenues and tightened regulatory oversight, prompting Barrick to suspend operations in January 2025. And it escalated when Mali seized 3 metric tons of Barrick's gold worth about $400 million in a military helicopter operation carried out under a judicial confiscation order. The bullion was held in the bank vault in Bamako for nearly a year. Last week, a Malian judge ordered the return of the gold to the company, clearing a major obstacle to the restart of operations. Under the settlement, Barrick agreed to pay around $430 million to resolve outstanding claims and withdraw its international arbitration cases against Mali. In return, the government dropped charges against the company, released 4 Barrick employees detained since November last year, and ended the provisional administration imposed on the mining complex. Right? So basically they paid nearly $500 million and are able to resume mining as long as if they pay taxes. I mean, that seems like a pretty fair deal. I would probably prefer that they take over it in its entirety, but they're probably not ready yet for that. And they need a little bit more support in terms of development. But they do have a major stake in mining. So, you know, the Malian people will be able to benefit from this, you know, in the long run, which is really important as well. So that's a really, really good update to that. Really good stuff there. I mean, state machinery is very, very important in terms of, you know, getting a lot of this stuff done. It's extremely important. You know, you can't get a lot of this stuff done without state machinery at all. You can't, right? So what I'm gonna do to cap this off, I'm gonna play some videos just from my channel about, you know, just the importance of unity, the importance of us uniting together, you know, the importance of us like having a unified front. That's gonna be important, you know, into 2026, and you know, we will reconvene with this STEAM class, you know, have a little bit more interaction, you know, on the next go around next week. And at the very end, I'm gonna play the full song. Y'all can get it on Spotify, Kamjiverse Music, Kamji Chronicles. I'm gonna play the full intro song so y'all can see the full audio of it as we end the show. Can't find it. Hold on a sec.
Let's go to Color Green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like virus lines, we break the bondage tight. Kamji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. If their drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide. Our voices thunder loud, politics and history. We stitch them in every verse, from Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets. We claim the Kamji verse.
Africans everywhere deserve and must have reparations. 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 Africans everywhere deserve and must have reparations, but the white man may not give any of us reparations. We may have to take what belongs to us. You sit around forever in inactivity, waiting for some reparations.
Many Africans became Roman citizens, just like many Black Americans today. I have nothing to do with Africa. I'm an American. I'm a citizen. I'm an American. There were Africans way back there with that same kind of split personality silliness, not knowing where their ethnic identity belonged.
Yet, growing knowledge and interest in Africa is rediscovering a world we never knew. And many Negroes are examining for the first time the values that were lost.
My name is Eula Mizik, and I'm addressing my question to Mr. Clark. I want to know what happened to the so-called Negro culture in America.
The most tragic destruction of African culture was the destruction of the African culture brought to these shores, brought to America's shores. Now, the first thing they did was to forbid the drum, forbid all African ceremonies, forbid African ornaments, literally to destroy a people in such a manner that they had to be remade in an American image. This was not exactly true in the West Indies. It was slavery, make no mistake about it. But because it was owned in Ireland, many of the Africans could communicate with each other and maintain some of the African culture, while in the United States it was impossible, because as they arrived, mother, brother, sister were split up and they went in opposite directions. Then they were resold. They might have been resold within a matter of days after they were sold the last time. So it was difficult for relatives to keep track of each other. And it was difficult for a continuity to be maintained in African culture. This was the beginning of the fragmenting of our family in this country. It was also the beginning of the demeaning and the negation of the masculinity of the black male in America. This demeaning of our culture and this reading us out of the commentary of human history has left deep psychological scars. What we are trying to do now is a massive job of rebuilding the inside, the spirits, the hopes, the history, the culture of a people. We're trying to restore those values that have been taken away. And we're trying to get across to black youth that they have a part to play in the making of a new world. They have the imagination, they have the energy. You must first restore that part of yourself that has been negated by oppression. It is as essential to you as bread and water. It is part of the food that must feed your spirit in the world of tomorrow. And it is part of what you will have to transfer to your children.
You got the beginning of an employment for the black American free man. You got the first contact with the Caribbean free man. And the first contact we have a record of that Prince Hall came from Barbados, and he began to ask some questions about all these people talking about liberty and justice for all and whether this meant us. And they told him, in this country, if you're a minister, you get respect. So he became a minister. He didn't get much respect. If you're a property owner, you get respect. So he began to own some property. Nothing changed. And finally somebody told me, you've got to have an organization. So he went to the British to get a charter, start a Masonic order. The British wouldn't give him a charter, but there was an Irish regiment angry with the British, and they gave him a charter just for spite. And he started the Black Masons. This was the beginning of cooperation between the Caribbean free man, the Black American free man, something both of us have stupidly forgotten about. Neither one of us call ourselves Caribbean or American. Both of us call ourselves African. And when Prince Hall established the Masons, he did not call it Masons. He called it the African Lodge. So the African consciousness, the African connection was firm. This, of course, would lead to other free men coming to the United States. John B. Russwurm from Jamaica, one of the editors of Freedom's Journal. Robert Campbell, another Jamaican. He would accompany the American Martin Delany in a search for a place, because this is the embryo of the settlement, of the colonization society that already started. And these were Africans going back to Africa to search for a place to settle for those who wanted to return. So Robert Campbell goes with Delany. Read Robert Campbell's account. Robert Campbell was a Harvard-educated man. So it's a Harvard man's account. Read Robert Campbell's account. They've both been published in the same book, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor paperback, called Search for a Place. Robert Campbell's essay, Pilgrimage to My Motherland, is one of the most moving and feeling books ever written about the love of a man for the country of his birth. His grammar is off, it's a little rough here and there, but if you can get the feeling this man gets across, that rough-hewed essay, it towers over Delany's essay, not because it's well-written, it's because it's not well-written. But it's written with so much feeling that you're willing to forget this. Now, what we're having is an intellectual class, is a responsible class, and a coalition between Caribbean free men, Black American free men. They had enough mobility until another Black American free man, a preacher, Garnett, was invited to come to Jamaica to rest up from the wars and the trials and tribulation in the United States. He came to Jamaica, and after a while someone let him know that condition in the United States had not changed. He thanked the Jamaican host and said that, I'm going back to the United States, not to ask for justice, because I know I'm not going to get that. Not to ask for mercy, not to ask for citizenship. I'm going back to the United States to devote the rest of my life in trying to tear that republic down. Black men don't speak that way anymore.
True as gold to Comma Green, we steady on the rise, digging truth from ancient scenes, we open.
All right, shout out to everybody in the building. You know, as we sign off, what we're going to do is I'm gonna play y'all the actual full song of this. Shout out to all the supporters. You see if I can bring it up. Pitchy.
the books, but we carry it in our bones. From the Kushite kings to the streets we call home. The pyramids with vision mapped the stars in the skies. But they erased our stories, now we bringing back the ties. Ain't no mystery, we royalty, coded in our name. Still they try to hide our power, playing the same old game. But we speak with the voice of the Nile and the storm. Truth cut deep like the blade was reborn. From chemist gold to comma green, we're steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirates lines, we break the bondage tight. Kamji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. Djembe drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide. Our voices thunder loud, politics and history. We stitch them in every verse, from Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets. We claim the Kamji verse. Cameroon got that flame, rooted deep in the soul. Gala blood, royal names, breaking every mold. Colonizers came and split us like a map, but the spirit stayed whole. Ain't no falling in they trap. From Douala to the Delta, we rise and organize. Decolonize the mind, make them see with new eyes. Reparations ain't a wish, it's a call to repair. Every verse we spit's a weapon, breathe resistance in the air. From chemist gold to comma green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirates lines, we break the bondage tight. Kamji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. Djembe drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide. Our voices thunder loud, politics and history. We stitch them in every verse, from Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets. We claim the Kamji verse. Now picture this, black youth with the crown in their mind, knowing they from greatness, not just fighting to survive. We more than pain, we prophesy more than change. We destiny, Kamji light the torch so the next can see. We building temples with the truth, laying bricks with the facts. Every show, every post, we taking power back. This for Harry and St. Kara, Queen Inda, Yui too. From Kemet to Cameroon, we speak what's real and true. Let's go to Kama Green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirates lines, we break the bondage tight. Kamji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. And their drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide. Our voices thunder loud, politics and history. We stitch them in every verse, from Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets. We claim the Kamji verse.
You can get that song on Spotify, Kamji Chronicles. Shout out to everybody in the building. Shout out to y'all for tuning in.